Hello everyone. Today, I don't know if you saw it, but Ellen McCarthy of the Washington Post decided to ask a question on Twitter for a story. She wanted to talk to what she described as the superhumans who have managed to avoid getting COVID for the past couple of years. What she got was thousands of people saying fairly predictable things if you understand anything about how this airborne pandemic works. Namely, they work from home, they use PPE, they wear N95 masks, and they avoid dining in at restaurants or, in general, any kind of unnecessary risk. Apparently that was not the story that she'd been sent out to find, because she deleted the question altogether. But it's an important question in a time when we're constantly being told that we need to learn to coexist with the virus. We need to live with the virus, at the same time as the scientific literature is saying that the virus will fuck you up. So, in the interest of promoting this discussion, since I am one of those superhumans and I live with two others, I thought I would just talk a little bit about what we're doing here that has allowed us to avoid getting COVID for 2 whole years. We're 3 people here, me, my mother, and my stepfather. None of us has a job that requires us to be in any particular place. As a translator, I basically can work anywhere that I have an internet connection. My clients do not care where I'm located. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, we are extremely careful. We have not let our guard down even once since this thing started back in early 2020, for a very simple reason. 2 of the people here are at high risk. My mother's 67. Her husband is in his 80s, and on top of that, he has cutaneous lymphoma and is on immunosuppressant therapy in order to deal with that. Basically, they are at the highest possible risk, even after having received all the vaccinations for which they're eligible for. Plus, all 3 of us have experience reading and understanding scientific literature, particularly in the area of life sciences. In particular, my stepfather, who is an emeritus professor of molecular biology. So the result is, we've been reading the scientific debate on the subject. We've been reading the journal articles and keeping an eye on the state of discussion in the field, rather than relying on the media. And I can tell you that the discussion in the scientific circles and the discussion in the media is very different. So, and that's something that we started doing the minute that COVID became a thing here in the U.S. And we avoid going into shops. We do not dine in restaurants. We haven't done any of that stuff since early 2020, when the first cases started to be announced here and it became clear that this was going to be potentially extremely bad. When, for some reason, we do have to go inside a place where we don't live, for example, to get vaccinations or to pick up grocery orders or something like that, where we're sharing air with people who are not necessarily taking the precautions that we are, we wear masks. These days, for a while, we were wearing specifically the Lifeguard antimicrobial mask, which has been tested in Germany and Bavaria in particular to meet basically the standards of N95. And these days, we augment that with a second mask. This is a KN95 mask, and then here is the antimicrobial mask. So, anytime that we go anywhere where we're around people and don't know what kind of precautions they're taking, if any, we are wearing respiratory protection, and we simply, for the most part, do not go. So, that is the first thing. We have the good fortune to be in a detached house. That's important because we don't share ventilation with anybody who isn't taking the exact same precautions that we are. When We've occasionally had to have people come into the house to repair things, to replace a busted dishwasher, to fix a rather alarming electrical issue. They always are expected to wear N95s, and we provide them. Fortunately, they have, by and large, actually done that. We all wear N95s until they leave, and actually for some time afterwards. We also have air purifiers that we've set up in order to speed the removal of any SARS-CoV-2 microbes from the air. So, on top of that, here's some of the other precautions that we have instituted. The first thing is, the principle we operate on is that there is such a thing as high-impact, low-probability risks, which is to say that it may not be all that likely, but if it actually happens, then you're fucked. For example, infection with COVID via contact with infectious surfaces has never been totally ruled out. It is believed to be extremely unlikely. But unlikely doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. As a result, we have set up a system that has been modified a few times as new scientific results come in that that we're confident in, where anything coming into the house is initially was first wiped down with disinfectant wipes, then left, unless it required immediate refrigeration, in the garage for 24 to 72 hours in order to ensure that any COVID on the surfaces would die out. As it's become clearer that that contaminated surfaces really aren't a major risk, we have actually been limiting that, though we still wipe everything down. Now, another thing is, every change to the precautions that we're taking is taken by consensus. If somebody says that they don't think it's enough, then we don't change what we're doing. Now, I should note, none of us have actually really had any disagreements on the subject. Every time that we have relaxed anything, and we haven't relaxed much, it has been, all three of us have totally agreed on it. Now, for the first year and a half of this catastrophe, we weren't even getting takeaways. During that period, I got very, very good at making pizza. As a result of this, I actually make better pizza than most of the ones that I pay for. Though it is a bit of a pain in the ass in a home kitchen when the cleanup is... so I don't do that so much. We only started getting takeaway after it became clear that the temperatures at which the food was cooked were definitely going to be high enough to have killed any SARS-CoV-2 that might be on them. And we still do not dine in because there's simply no way to eat and drink with a fucking mask on. We have never let our guards down. We have never for a second believed all the false reassurances that you hear in the media. Not when they started relaxing, when they started getting rid of the fake lockdowns, well before even their own stated targets for new cases had been met. Not when the media started claiming that Omicron was actually mild, which it was way too early for anyone to say that, and it turned out that actually wasn't true. It actually turns out to be even worse. That has been the overall tendency. Not when they came up with the ridiculous guidance that said that actually, if you get infected, it's like you had a natural booster. Because we're reading the literature, and the literature says that COVID fucks up your immune system. And actually makes you more likely not only to get COVID, but to get to all sorts of other stuff that you have developed protection for. So we don't listen to that. We have led a very monastic life for 2 years, 2.5 now, as a result of that. Because all around us, we see basically no precautions being taken at all. And the more that you read in the scientific literature about this disease, the clearer it is that you don't want anything to do with it. And so, we don't. Our precautions are basically this. We wear masks anytime we're around people who may or may not be taking any kind of precautions. We do not go inside buildings we don't live in unless absolutely necessary for very short times, and we double mask when we do it. We wear N95s plus an antimicrobial mask from Lifeguard. We haven't eaten in a restaurant since probably January 2020. We have no intention of doing so anytime soon, and we're fortunate enough to live in a detached house where we don't have shared ventilation, and none of us have a job that we have to go someplace to. I work from home, my mother works from home, and my stepfather is retired, so we are able to avoid a lot of the major risks that other people are being forced to expose themselves to by the government's refusal to simply take proper precautions in this country. That's it. We're not superhumans. The people who have avoided COVID are not fucking superhumans. And when you actually look at the international comparisons, you look at countries like New Zealand, Cuba, South Korea, China, Vietnam, what you find is the exact same thing. They take precautions. They were wearing masks well before the U.S. government even acknowledged publicly that masks were necessary. They massively stepped up mask production so that everybody could wear one, and they required them both in indoor and outdoor public places. They have not actually lifted that. In Cuba, they've lifted the outdoor masking, but they've only lifted it because their new cases in the entire country are in the double digits. Their deaths are at the most like in the single digits on a weekly basis. And the vaccination rate is something like 98% of the over 5s. And even then, they're still requiring indoor masking. You don't have to be a superhuman to avoid this. You actually have to have some serious talent to fuck this up as badly as the US has. And I find it extremely unfortunate that apparently the Washington Post doesn't want to talk about what people are actually doing to protect themselves from this and doing it successfully. Probably because then you might have people asking why it is, given that we're not all given the means to protect ourselves from a disease that is deadly and debilitating, but at the same time eminently preventable. So, that's it. That's it. We just don't let our guard down. We don't believe false reassurances. We wear our masks anytime we're around people who we don't know what kind of precautions they're taking. And we avoid unnecessary risks. We don't go inside places we don't live in unless we absolutely have to, and we double mask when we do it. That is literally all it takes. It's unfortunate that we live in a society where those basic things are being denied people, and in order to avoid them complaining about the fact that they're being denied access to such basic precautions, the government and the media just sort of pretend that they're not necessary. So there you are, Ellen McCarthy, that's the answer. This has been the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. If you like what I'm doing here and would like to contribute, I always love to see new supporters on my Patreon, the link of which is right down at the bottom of the screen right there. I stream Friday and Saturday nights from 11:30 to 1 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time, and other times as the mood strikes me and I am able to do it. If you're interested in my language-related material, check out Hyperpolyglotting with Elise, both on Twitch and on YouTube, where I also stream fairly regularly and produce material on the subject of languages and language learning.